Hello to everyone and welcome to the Hub Crawl 2022. This is our third session of 8 virtual events. I'm Sam from Ukie and your host here today. The Hub Crawl 2022 is 12 dates, 8 virtual events, all taking place 4 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. And the good news is we're going to be going on the road in April and doing some physical meetups, getting some companies together and resurfacing some of this content. So I look forward to seeing some of you there. Hopefully, if you want to find out more about the Ukie Hub Crawl, please go to ukie.org.uk. And I'm delighted to announce that this event today, New Technology for Games, we have 2 amazing partners. We have AWS, Amazon Web Services, and also Barclays Bank, both of whom we're going to hear from shortly. Today's event is being recorded, and a video link along with pertinent slides will be sent on to you afterwards in the next couple of days. And we encourage plenty of questions. So if you have any questions for our speakers today, please click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, type your question, and I'll try and get those over to the speakers at the end of each of their sessions. If there's any questions we don't get to, the speakers will type answers in afterwards just to make sure that we're giving you all the feedback that you need. But thanks for joining us today. And I'd like to welcome first to the camera, David Gowans from Barclays.
Thanks, Sam. It's lovely to be here this afternoon. I think it's a nice routine every Thursday, as you said at 4, and it's great to speak to you, at least in some way, till the physical event starts from my little cube here in South Shields, not so sunny South Shields. And I think for us, especially at Barclays, I'm lucky enough to lead the games and esports team here at Barclays, and we see, just by working with so many companies and organizations in this space, just the sheer amount of growth and innovation that comes from games. I think games help forge a lot of the new technology that also migrates to other industries. Those industries and my peers who work in those industries are only now seeing things that we saw built in games years and years ago: AI, VR, cloud services, micropayments, solutions that the incredible, innovative and creative games industry comes up with to solve its problems, also solve the problems of so many other sectors. And it's really so important to not only keep an eye on the industry and where it is leading technology and innovation, but just how this industry deals with the new technology that is on the horizon and a lot of the disruptive technology that is in play right now. If it can be used in games and forged through games creators, it's set for success. So I'm really happy to be here and watch the rest of the show this afternoon. If you want to find out anything from Barclays, our aim is to support the games industry in any way that we can, as a bank, with business building programs and everything else we offer. You can see that by visiting games.barclays or following us on social media, on Twitter at Barclays Games, same at LinkedIn, and we're always here if anyone wants to reach out. We're really lucky to be a partner with Ukie, working on so many great things like this Hub Crawl. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. You said it had been a long week. You said the Hub Crawl then was every Thursday. It's every Tuesday. It really has been a long week if you already think you're on Thursday. So
it's not Thursday. Dear me, does feel like
it. Thank you very much again for your support. Absolutely, absolutely greatly appreciated. Particularly when we get out on the road, it'll allow us to make all of the events free and pay for pizza and beer so that people can come along. So we really appreciate both Barclays and also AWS ongoing support. And delighted to welcome Joe from AWS to come and join me now. Joe, so oh, there you are. Camera on, audio on. Here we go. How you doing? You all good? All good?
Really good, really good. Really happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for giving up the time and sharing insight from AWS. I'm going to just hand over to you now. So if you just share screen and off you go. Yep, can see that. Take it
See
away.
that?
Yeah,
Brilliant.
all good.
Thank you. So firstly, hello. My name is Joe Pietroni, and I'm a Senior Solutions Architect at AWS. To tell you a little bit about me, I've been at Amazon for a year, and my background is in building web and mobile games for TV shows like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Deal or No Deal, and Mr. Bean. I've always loved games. I'm passionate about them. And my favorite game of all time is probably still that old Amiga classic, The Secret of Monkey Island. It may be 30 years old now, but I still enjoy helping Guybrush Threepwood on his quest to become a mighty pirate. Today, I'd like to tell you a little bit about some of the latest and greatest cloud technologies and how they can help improve your games. To start with, I'd like to give a brief introduction to AWS GameTech. Whatever size your studio is, the only thing that really matters is making a game that your players want to play and keep playing, although maybe not for 30 years. This is where we can help. AWS GameTech is the team at AWS that is laser focused on the gaming industry. We're absolutely obsessed with games, and we provide robust, scalable solutions for every stage in your game's lifecycle, regardless of your studio size. We have hundreds of millions of players worldwide playing games built on AWS, and that includes games from companies like Sony, EA, Activision Blizzard, Supercell, Ubisoft, Nintendo, Zynga, Rovio, and more. We have millions of active users, tens of thousands of partners, and teams of solution architects like me around the world just waiting to help you. At AWS GameTech, we focus on three main pillars. The first one is build, and we'll help you to build your games faster using the very latest tooling. This lets you improve your game development workflows and create immersive game experiences that keep your players playing. The second is run. We try to help you run your games in the smartest ways possible. And we believe that even really small studios should be able to run a game with millions of players without needing a huge server infrastructure team. We offer managed services so that you can create a completely serverless game backend. For multiplayer games, where servers are required, we offer a fully managed service called GameLift, which you can use to manage and scale up your servers automatically. And both of these mean that you only pay for what you use, so your bill only grows along with the success of your game. And the third pillar is grow. We'll help you to grow your games and make them more successful. And this means improving your player acquisition, retention, monetization. We can help you build communities and use machine learning to better understand your players' behavior. And today I'm going to focus on one workload from each of these three pillars. Sorry, just having a slight technical problem. The first example from our build pillar is what we call game production in the cloud. Game production in the cloud is focused on helping you be more efficient and have a faster time to market when developing games. This means having everything from your workstations, your version control, and your build pipelines available to you and your team. Since the pandemic, more and more game developers have been working remotely, and AWS has been helping studios move towards a distributed production model. And this lets game companies make use of the power of AWS to improve their collaboration, to reduce their build times, improve their security, and tap into a global talent pool. AWS lets you securely deploy powerful virtual graphical workstations so that artists, editors, and developers can quickly and easily work with large files. Instead of wasting time downloading and uploading files over your home internet connection, the files stay in the cloud, and users can simply stream the applications that use the files. AWS supports several low latency streaming protocols so that the user experience one of these workstations is almost indistinguishable from working on a local machine. We have the industry's most cost-effective server instances with choice of both NVIDIA and AMD Radeon GPUs. You can get one of these workstations up and running in a matter of minutes, and once it's no longer needed, you can simply shut it down. And with AWS, you only pay for what you use for the duration that you use it for. Games developers have always needed fast and scalable version control systems, and games just keep getting bigger and bigger and more complex. We have a partnership with Perforce, which makes it easy for studios to store and manage their game assets in the cloud. One of the great things about this is you can make use of elastic storage so that you never run out of space. And there's automatic replication, so you can be confident that you'll never lose your data either. Another huge advantage comes with actually the build process. Builds, especially production builds, can take a very long time, but using the cloud can dramatically speed this up. you can simply scale up the number of Elastic Compute Cloud instances to build your game in parallel. And these builds can also make use of what we call spot instances. Spot instances are servers that we can launch from spare, unused compute capacity to achieve up to a 90% discount. Being able to provide remote workstations means you can get your teams quickly up to speed wherever they are in the world. It lets you tap into a global talent pool without being limited to developers and artists who are in the same city or even the same country. Quantic Dream are a AAA game developer known for their interactive storytelling games like Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls. When COVID hit Europe, they worked with AWS to find a solution so that the studio could work and collaborate at home. They wanted to be able to empower their team to work remotely, but also to be able to achieve their recruitment goals. They ended up building a serverless backend, which allowed their staff to connect into cloud workstations running on the Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud. It was a huge success, and their CTO said that the results were much better than anyone had anticipated. It also had the benefit of providing an additional layer of security to protect their game assets and their IP. So hopefully that's given you kind of a flavor of how AWS can help improve your development processes. So now let's move on to actually running the games. Running games at scale used to be a really big challenge for smaller studios, but AWS has a variety of managed services that allow studios of any size to run highly available, highly scalable, global game backends. You'll want your players to be able to enjoy a smooth and competitive game wherever they are around the world. The AWS Global Network makes it possible to provide low latency experiences for your players. We currently have 26 geographic regions, with 8 more planned. AWS also provides a range of edge locations dotted around the world, which can be used to accelerate traffic for your players. This means your players can connect into an edge location that's close to them, and then the traffic can be routed across the private AWS Global Network as quickly as possible. This minimizes the distance that traffic travels over the public internet, which reduces latency and jitter and provides a better, more consistent experience for your players. The next huge benefit is security. AWS has been architected to be the most flexible and secure cloud computing environment available today. AWS has protection from common distributed denial of service attacks, and we support 98 different security standards and compliance certifications. Then there's scaling. Game traffic is not static. And in the past, what this meant was you'd have to over-provision your capacity to be able to handle the peaks of traffic and pay for capacity that wasn't being used. If your game explodes, you'll want to know that your game backend can scale to handle millions of players. AWS offers a variety of options to help you achieve this. Amazon provides a serverless suite of services that can handle everything from player authentication through to custom cloud code. This means you can create powerful backend services. You can simply upload your code to the cloud without having to think about managing any servers at all. AWS Lambda, which is our compute service, can scale to hundreds of thousands of requests per second. And for multiplayer games, Amazon GameLift provides a managed service for running game servers and will automatically increase and decrease the capacity for you as your traffic ebbs and flows. With both of these approaches, you're only paying for what you use. Moving on to growing your game, AWS offers a whole range of ways to leverage machine learning and artificial intelligence to improve your game and grow it. AWS can help you make better use of analytics to use data to answer the big questions in your games around user acquisition, engagement, and monetization. We have a games analytics pipeline that is completely flexible and tailored to your needs, and you can deploy it into your account with just a matter of clicks from the AWS website. You might be using a third-party analytics or attribution vendor, and you can take the data from that and ingest it into the pipeline for further analysis. This data can be used to help you automatically detect fraud or abuse, and we have a workshop that can show you how you can use machine learning to assess the difficulty of your game's different levels and improve the game's leveling. Amazon offers super fast algorithms that are perfect for a whole range of different use cases. Amazon SageMaker lets you quickly build, train, and deploy your own custom machine learning models onto AWS. And now it's easier than ever for you to get started. We know that machine learning can be daunting. AWS offers SageMaker Autopilot, which is really, really cool. I absolutely love this. What this does is it will automatically explore different machine learning models and algorithms for you, and it can automatically build, train, and tune the best machine learning model for your use case based on your data, while still giving you full control and visibility. And then for specific game tech use cases, we have pre-built machine learning services that you can call really simply just via an API. We have customers using Amazon Personalize to improve the adverts and the products shown to individual players. And then we have other customers using Amazon Comprehend to quickly analyze the sentiment on social media posts when new features and new game updates go live. Machine learning can also be used to turbocharge your development process. Amazon Polly will let you build lifelike voices into your game, allowing you to test out the dialogue and the timing before then eventually hiring a voice actor to provide the final voice track. Polly has over 50 different voices and supports 24 different languages. Rovio Entertainment gives a really good example of how machine learning can be used with games. Everyone knows Angry Birds. I love that game. It's won awards, it's broken records, it's redefined casual gaming as we know it. And when Angry Birds Dream Blast launched, the Rovio team wanted to create a tight, engaging, and satisfying game that kept players coming back for more. To do this, Rovio used machine learning to help understand the playability of the game, as well as looking at churn and lifetime value. In the past, Rovio would put new levels into the game each week, and it could then take several weeks for them to learn how players were responding to them and to fine-tune those levels to maximize the playability. With machine learning doing the heavy lifting to predict the playability, Rovio's players now get the best experience from the moment that the levels are released. Rovio is also delivering a customized game for each individual, using machine learning to understand what different types of players want from the game and adjusting accordingly. Super cool. So how can you get started? Well, if you're starting from scratch in terms of your familiarity with the cloud and AWS, I highly recommend you begin with the Getting Started with Game Tech online tutorial. There's a QR code above and a link that you can go to access it. This is a course that's specifically for business decision makers and technical bods who work in game development, and it's a self-paced tutorial of about 90 minutes. This provides you with an overall introduction to the different AWS Game Tech services, and you will learn which workloads are supported by each different service and gain an understanding of the value, whether that's player retention or increased revenue, that working with AWS can bring you. You'll also understand which workloads are supported by Game Tech using managed or unmanaged services and how different backend services are used. Once you've gone through that and completed that, there is actually a dedicated learning path you can take to build out your knowledge further. Well, that's about it from me. Thank you for your time. I've only been able to give you a very brief taste of how AWS can help you build better games, but I hope I've at least piqued your interest. Please feel free to reach out with any questions, and I really look forward to helping you build your next awesome game on AWS.
Thank you, Joe, for that presentation. And as you say, you seem to cover a lot of ground there in a short period of time. So thank you. That's the point of today. So thank you. It might be worth copying some of those links to the tutorials into the chat just so that people can have a look at it. And I was slightly concerned when you said early on your favorite game was The Secret of Monkey Island. That's a game that I sold into retail, and then you put a number by how many years ago that was. So that really did age me at that moment. So nothing wrong with the game.
Fanboy. I loved one of the games I loved on the Amiga, and yeah, still love it now.
Oh my word. Just a very quick question for you. We talk about the the protection of IP through AWS, which is so important for games companies, particularly when they're working remotely at the moment. What happened when we went into lockdown? Were you inundated with calls with people saying, right, we've got to get these things in place for our remote working and extra security?
Yes,
what
absolutely.
Changed at that point? Yeah, okay.
It really opened everything up. And what's really interesting is that the changes that we made to improve the security and to allow people to work remotely have carried on and are still being used. So things that were originally an emergency situation to try and deal with the pandemic, customers that wouldn't have considered working with virtual workstations in the cloud suddenly are much more interested in exploring that and realizing that this is a core part of their workflow. They can do things that they just couldn't do before, like the build pipeline side, particularly being able to do a production build in sometimes it can be like 1/10 of the time that it would be if you're running it on your local machine, and avoiding all of this uploading and downloading of large assets, particularly when you've got people collaborating on these huge files, to get the latest files down to your local machine can just be so slow, and the cloud solves all of those problems for you.
Well, I was in a session this morning, and an unnamed UK development studio, pretty much top 10 in terms of size, says the cloud is the future for the games industry. We were talking about where the industry is going. This is their view on it. And it sounds like you're right in the right place, given the right support to companies all the way through. So thank you very much for sharing that. If there's any questions for Joe, please pop them in the Q&A, and Joe will deal with them in there, or share details offline. I will be sharing the slides afterwards, so you can get Joe's details and follow up with him, but absolute must. So thanks very much for coming on today, Joe. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Moving on, Kevin Williams is up next. Kevin, how are you doing? You okay?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, more importantly?
Oh, I'm about 8.5 out of 10. So a little room for improvement, but not much. I'm sure you will push me. I think you've got the most amazing voice for virtual events.
Thank you.
Hey, let's have a bit of Kevin Williams then. Over to you. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. And again, let me thank UKIE for the opportunity to speak with you all here on this Tuesday. Virtual pub crawl, well, a virtual drink to all of you. The main reason why I'm here is mainly to get across a new industry, which is an old industry. This year marks the 50th anniversary of Pong, one of the first of the successful, globally recognized video amusement machines. And the video amusement industry has migrated into the multi-billion-dollar industry that represents the theme park, casino gaming, the location-based, the virtual reality, entertainment facility sector. A vast industry, but an industry that is still founded and grounded in interactive entertainment and interactive gaming. Many of the rules and applications that generate the industry of consumer video gaming come directly from the out-of-home entertainment market. And now the out-of-home entertainment market has been borrowing, so we say, or should we be more accurate, merging with the consumer game sector. The cross-platform support that is out-of-home entertainment is an amazing industry and an opportunity that is now available for both consumer game studios as well as film studios and major brands. But before I get too much into that, let me introduce myself. My name is Kevin Williams. Many of you will know that I've covered the out-of-home entertainment sector religiously over the years, starting back in the 80s. So I'm showing a little bit of my age. But also I come from a background as an ex-Walt Disney Imagineer, as also a leader of game development studios, and also of amusement and out-of-home entertainment facilities. And I've been running for the last 20 years a consultancy called KWP. Well, the industry's changed. And a few years ago, KWP and a number of other specialists in the out-of-home entertainment market got together, and after the bar bill was paid and we sobered up, we worked out that it was a good idea to now allow all of the expertise that's been gathered by all of those individuals to be combined under one roof. And so Spider Entertainment, a specialist in location-based entertainment and facilities, was formed, and we've been operational for the last 2 years. What a fantastic time to launch an out-of-home entertainment company just in the middle of a lockdown. Well, doom and gloom aside, we have exited the out-of-home entertainment sector, and we've been very lucky that the upswing that many people expected has taken place. And you will all be aware of the mass investment that has been made in out-of-home entertainment experiences. Individuals who have come out of lockdown stir crazy. They want to be social again. They want to get together again. And competitive socialization is an aspect of the out-of-home entertainment industry that you'll be hearing a lot more about. An example of consumer games companies that have moved across into the out-of-home entertainment market is best illustrated by operations such as Ubisoft, who have not only created a VR escape game division, but have also announced recently that they will be opening their own Ubisoft Interactive innovative out-of-home entertainment facilities, their first one opening in France in a year's time, with plans to follow that with a theme park. A theme park based on video games. Oh, yes, well, we've seen that in Japan with the announcement that Nintendo has moved into a strong partnership with our friends at Universal Studios to create the Super Nintendo World concept, which has already received vast interest and strong support from the playing and theme park audience. And we hope to see the Californian and Orlando versions of that facility opening soon. The marriage of interactivity into the physical entertainment space seems to be the personification of what many people have been talking about, the metaverse. That word that keeps on being dropped constantly and no one really understands what it means. From my point of view, I am looking at the metamorphosis of the ability to take digital entertainment experience and drop that into the real world, physical transformation. And we in the out-of-home entertainment sector have been trying to add interactivity constantly to the experiences that we give to our guests. Esports is a perfect example of how a large audience and a large player base can be compelled to come to a location to compete in an entertainment experience, but also proves the concept of crossover, where most
Well, is that a Kevin thing? Kevin, what's happened there? Yes, I think Kevin's frozen mid-flow. He was really going for it, wasn't it? Interestingly, Kevin was talking about the metaverse there and people's view on it. We've got a panel on it later on in this activity. So, Kevin, are you back now? We have a panel on the metaverse later, so we can answer those questions.
Yes, seems that I was kidnapped by the metaverse there. I'm sorry.
It got you. It took you away, but you're back now. Okay. Mid-flow, yes. I'm sorry to say.
Obviously, the bar bill hasn't been cleared. But sorry, what I was saying regarding the metaverse crossover and all of the applications there was that we're now at a point where the technology that is being used to draw the audience from their home game experience now is being used to inject them into an interactive entertainment experience within the location-based entertainment. As I was saying, the VR experience that has been engendered by the consumer sector has exploded in location-based application. And again, talking about our friends at Ubisoft, they have partnered with nDreams to develop a virtual reality location-based entertainment experience, or one of their most popular IP, with the Far Cry virtual reality experience. Developed in partnership with Zero Latency, a 8-player virtual reality free roaming experience has been created based on consumer IP. At the same time, our friends at Dreamscape have worked with a major film studio to develop the Men in Black virtual reality experience. While the consumer VR sector offers a fantastic opportunity, location-based entertainment offers a much higher technology stake, and so much higher immersion can be created through developments for this environment. And as we've seen recently, this environment offers a fantastic marketing opportunity. That marketing opportunity grabbed by companies such as Netflix, who've gone out of their way to partner and to develop a virtual reality experience that are based on their successful Army of the Dead property, which then draws groups of 6 into a recreation, an immersive recreation of that virtual metaverse that they have created, full of zombies, fear, and weaponry, and has acted not just as a marketing tool, not just as an experience entertainment system, but also as a crossover to draw the audience deeper into the experience than they could ever get from a mere consumer video game or from just watching a passive film experience. We are at that interesting point where cross-reality, XR, is now the concept that we're all looking towards. And it is that expensive new technology and new development that now sees the utilization and deep pockets that we have in the location-based entertainment industry being applied. And that's really why I turn to many of the members of Yucky and other aspects of this industry and say that there is an opportunity for your developments to now be pushed into the out-of-home entertainment market, where once you were only thinking of mobile or console game development, there is now theme park and location-based entertainment systems, the 10th and 11th console, as it were, for you to have an opportunity to develop on. I mentioned Spider Entertainment and what we're doing here. We are a company that not just only operates facilities, but also offers services that allow individuals to take the concept of location-based entertainment and make it real. We work with companies on the concepts of deployment. We also work with companies on how to operate these facilities, as well as market and promote. And another aspect that we're looking very closely at is the development of future entertainment systems that will draw the audience into the sector. Gamification is a word that you will hear a lot about over the next few years. The ability to offer an interactive entertainment element where the individual can create scores, where they can collect special items and prizes and gifts, and it acts as a compelling manner for them to come back and play again and again. Repeat visitation, that repeat pay for play, is an aspect of our industry that is a very strong element and a very strong financial draw to our sector. It is the crossover between the gaming industry and the amusement industry, but it is also the opportunity to look towards what the future holds, not just playing a video game, but actually experiencing the whole gaming environment and being able to be dropped into the heart of the experience. I've gone on a little bit too much about a sector that I'm very passionate about, and I would hope that if you have any other questions or would like to know more about what we are doing, that you can contact me directly. My email is Kevin at kwp@thestingerreport.com, and I will answer any questions that you have about the sector, as well as share some of the stats about some of the new entries into the sector. But once again, I would like to thank the UKIE for the opportunity to speak to you all and wish you a great Tuesday.
Kevin, thank you very much for that. And can I call you evangelical? Is that all right? As evangelical as ever? Is that
well, you've had to suffer me over the years going on about this sector.
Well, but you were ahead. You were right. I mean, thinking
I didn't
about
hear
this.
You correctly. Did you say I have a big head? Sorry.
Well, you made some brilliant assessments and judgments, 5-6 years ago as to where the industry is going, and it's getting there now, which is amazing. Has anything surprised you? Has there been any sort of curveballs, any surprise sort of junctures on this route?
Yeah, I've seen some real serious surprises. My ego is so big that even I can admit that there have been some, so we say, curveballs that have come out of nowhere. Seeing companies such as Ubisoft and EA and Activision and Microsoft and Square and now Nintendo all starting up their own location-based entertainment divisions and looking seriously at this market is a surprise. Seeing film companies like Lionsgate opening location-based entertainment facilities that totally cross over from film, the entertainment sector, straight into interactive entertainment medium. But really, the big surprise has been Super Nintendo World. It is a concept that we've all thought was viable, but to actually see a recreation of digital game experiences as physical interactive attractions, the ability to walk around the park wearing a special wristband that collects points, and those points can then allow you to go to secret areas of the park. It is the dream come true, and we have seen with recent patents from Disney and Universal that there are going to be many parks that will employ this. We are getting to that stage that I've been boring many people about, where the total crossover between the consumer interactive experience and the out-of-home entertainment experience will converge.
That's amazing. Thank you very much, Kevin. Any more questions for Kevin, please pop them in the Q&A, and I will share Kevin's email address later on if you want to reach out to him. Thanks very much, Kevin. And now I'm going to welcome Dusan to the hub crawl here. Dusan, whose computer just crashed and he had to restart, but I think you're here, Dusan. You're there.
Yeah, it looks like I'm holding on now, so that's good.
You're home and you're back. No, I've never met you before, Dusan, so I'm delighted to meet you. Thank you for coming and helping out here. Dusan works for Dell. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much. So let me share quickly my screen. Let's see if that works for everybody.
Yep, I can see the slides on the left. They're not in, they're in, yeah, that's it. Wonderful.
Yeah, it should go full screen. It has a little bit of delay on my side. I apologize for the internet quality. But
It's all over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, so I try to be very specific with my speech, so no interruptions there, hopefully. So hi, everybody. My name is Dusan Petrash, and probably I haven't met most of you yet. So just a little bit about me. I'm currently in the position of EMEA Monitor Product Manager within Dell for the last 6 years, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about some of the trends of the technology industry, where it's moved, and maybe give you some insight that can help you make your games better. That's a little bit about me. I'm based in Slovakia, and therefore I grew up behind the Iron Curtain, which really influenced how I experience games. I was one of the lucky people that had access to some computers very early. So I remember I was able to play games before I was able to read. Really back then, when stuff like Q*bert and DuckTales were and Dina Blasters were the newest and hottest things. So I was really gaming since I can remember, and I was my whole life passionate about gaming industry, and game design. So that's something that I would like to get a little bit in detail today for you. In terms of what we want to talk about today is monitors, not only because it's kind of my specialty, but also because a lot of people are thinking about all the kind of things and experiences and always forget about the monitors. And let's be honest, if you are not developing for VR, the monitors is literally the one device all your customers are experiencing your games on. So it's pretty much how your audience is experiencing games is defined by what kind of devices they are using. And even the best games can sometimes fail by having not the right custom experience. So we could talk about a million different trends that are right now within the quite dynamic industry within what we would call display technology industry. But I want to focus on 3 specific ones, as those are the most impactful and probably ones that also impact the game development the most. The first one will be resolution, the second one size and form factors, and the last one will be refresh rate. So let me dive right into it. And resolution and the 4K lie that we have been told for so long. And I think a lot of you will remember we were promising playing games in 4K. You can play 4K games in 120 hertz, especially coming from the consoles everywhere. And now it's 2022. We have been hearing that about probably 10 to 15 years that the 4K gaming is coming, and it didn't really arrive at any time. We know the games got much prettier. A lot of stuff happened. New generation of consoles came in, but really native gaming in 4K is still not reality. Might be because of more fidelity within the games. Might be to the graphic power not developing as fast as we would hope to, but really, if you're looking at any modern games, playing that in a 4K native resolution is something that's really hasn't been very prominent and pretty much impossible on most of the devices with most of the titles out there. On the other hand, something that we have seen very strongly is also move away from the Full HD. The Full HD has been for the longest time a very dominant resolution. Everybody was always optimizing your experience. This is your Full HD, and that's what it has to run on. Full HD 60, that's where we're aiming for. But in the last couple of years, and especially driven through some of the pandemic big spans that we have seen in the industry, QHD is becoming not only widely affordable, but also popular. It really started become more popular in the bigger sizes, around 27-inch. But as we will see later, that's actually the size that's slowly replacing our old 22, 24-inch that has been in the market previously. And that's not very easy, because QHD resolution is 78% more pixels. That also means that we have to have the power to drive those 78% more pixels, that the devices have to be ready, and then everything has to work very well. And that has been something that I personally also noticed in many indie titles I played recently, that a lot of times I choose a resolution as I use a QHD monitor myself. Something went wrong. There have been some issues, some distortions here and there. And it has been very clear that a lot of people just, optimize for that one single thing and really don't take much thought about what kind of resolutions are now in that market. And the other thing that we have seen a lot is that a lot of people, driven by the marketing around 4K, are craving that 4K experience. They really want to see the games. They're buying the 4K devices, and they are making more affordable. Like 4K monitors are becoming more and more affordable. They are not anymore $1,000 investment. You can buy a cheap 4K monitor starting easily below 500. So more and more your game, and especially on the higher end, are looking for that magical experience that have been promised. And really, with NVIDIA DLSS 2.0 and AMD Fidelity FX, that has been something that they actually can touch. And those are technologies that have seen a lot of adoption, especially in the higher end spectrum, as we see, because again, the graphic power hasn't been developing as fast as we have been developing graphics in games. So if we really want to drive more pixels going forward, really need technology to enable us to do that without burning through the hardware. So that has been something that has been heavily craved. So if you're thinking about developing games and you are deciding, do I need something like that? Really, this is something that I think will be heavily impactful, especially in visually exceptional titles. People will be looking for that experience, being able to get that into the high resolution of the monitors without sacrificing some of the performance. One of the other things that we have been also seeing is also wide variety of resolutions. And that has been something that, especially if you play other titles a lot like me, or if you play a lot of indie stuff, has been a sore spot for many of us, because if you look at what is being offered, a lot of times wider resolutions that are not common, like 1920 by 1200, 16 by 10 resolutions, are often not supported, are supported weirdly. So it seems like it's not a big deal. We're talking about niche market, but these are markets that are growing exponentially, and more your customers will be playing on something that's not your normal full HD 1920 by 1080, and especially on smaller titles, that can be really determine if the game sticks with the audience or not, if they're able to play on the device of choice based on the resolution. Second, that also comes, it all ties together, really, all these three topics, but the second one that really comes with it is the size and form factor. As I mentioned, QHD is becoming more and more popular, and with that also comes the heavy dominance of 27-inch form factor. So 27-inch 16 by 9 is the new king of the sales, really becoming completely dominant over 24-inch. 24-inch really starts to be reserved for specific use cases in esports and on the budget level. But the moment we looking into your mainstream gaming or what we call gaming first audiences, which means that the gaming is a primary hobby, we will see that immediately jumping that investment into 27-inch and QHD resolution is very quick, and it's becoming more and more dominant. And on the other hand, again, 32 16 by 9 and 34-inch ultrawides are more and more popular. Up to 20% of sales in certain regions are made up by ultrawide monitors. And I put here some examples, how that can look like in terms of game development, because this is something that will be a serious market space and can really deter users from playing your games. So we can see here the first example here. You probably know who it is, and you can see that they didn't want to bother to animate kind of the background, despite those games existing on devices that are like mobile devices that have odd form factors. For whatever reason, the PC version on Hearthstone just doesn't support your proper wide screen ratio. And how that actually influences gameplay can be nicely seen here on the kind of Civilization example. It's a game that looks amazing on ultrawide. Everybody loves that wide views, huge maps. But when you realize that all that UI is actually stuck to the corners and to the sides, and you play the game where around 30% of your interaction happens in the right bottom corner, because that's where all your commands for your units and all the kind of things pop up, you realize that that's actually a really bad experience for a customer. It's actually for the player, it's sometimes annoying, and I can tell you from my own experience, it's so annoying that they might not play the game on that ultra-wide monitor. So something that can be really enjoyable experience on a smaller monitor can really deter the usage on those ultra-wides if it's not taken care properly. How it can be addressed is in many ways, of course, but it needs to be thought about how we design our UIs, how we design our field of views. What do we do offer the customer? Here we can see some of the RPGs really give you the extra wide view for the immersion, but ensure that your UI is centered on the middle. That way, no matter how much more space I give you, you're still getting all the information you need. Of course, you cannot do it all the time. There are competitive reasons, there are other game reasons. You cannot always give customers more views. So a racing game on the side here really solved the problem differently. Instead of adding you side views, they cropped your view. They removed something that was not important, like a piece of your wheel and piece of your, piece of your car above the front screen. So you don't have to look at that black bar, and you still have the same kind of view, but fits very nicely immersively. But we can also see here that they realize the problems with the UI. So they move the UI showing the speed slightly closer to the center, because they understood that that's something that their players will be looking at all the time and need to move it to the center so it's not out of the way. And those are just a few things to think about when we think about how our players should be playing games. The more we want to go into immersive experiences, the more we want customers to have that kind of, I forgot the time, one more turn experience, the more we should not only design our game to look great on ultrawide, but also the kind of UI elements. I can mention maybe Smite, which I play personally, that gives you a completely customizable UI where you can move everything where you want. And that allows everybody to have the UI they want. So if you're designing your game, think about it. Up to 20% of your audience might end up playing an ultrawide monitor. What is your experience? I cannot tell you how many times I walk into QA departments. I was like a 24 of the same monitor on the desk, or 24 of the same PCs even. So really think about the diversity out there in the market, because it's being more and more diverse, and it's moving towards bigger screen and wider screens as a tendency. And of course, one of the big things, and with the words of legendary Total Biscuit, where is my FOV slider? We think that we often know what the customer should be experiencing, how we should be looking at the game. And, FOV has been a thing that we have been having issues with a lot of time, especially with ports from console games and others. But with the consoles are not anymore tied to your living rooms. We see consoles today being the same desk gaming experience as a PC, and being more and more this kind of core gaming devices, not just something that's a living room entertainment for the family. So with that also comes different sizes. Now, the most popular addition to the console has been 32 QHD monitors, at least to the Xbox, because PlayStation still got the notice they only support Full HD and 4K. But Xbox now supports all this kind of in-between resolution, which are being the most popular. But that also comes with different use cases. So something that was a very narrow FOV, like 60, that's really great on the TV when you sit 3 meters away, is absolutely awful to look at and can cause nausea for a lot of people if used on a desktop environment. So again, if you're using first-person games, if you're thinking about that, think about how different customers' needs might be in terms of, or players' needs might be in terms of what they want to be engaged with. Do they have an ultra-wide monitor? Maybe they need a really wide FOV to not have smearing on the side, or the image being stretched. Do they maybe play on the TV? Then they need a very narrow FOV. So it's something that a lot of times we see being kind of put it aside, or like last thing that has been added, or even forgotten. But it actually contributes to the difference between if people just play your game a little bit, or if it becomes the next title they are engaged with for a long, long time. And the longer we want people to play our games, the more it needs to be something they really can lose themselves and not think about, oh, this would be great if I just had a better FOV, or if the UI was not 5 meters on my left. And last but not least, for sure, refresh rate. And I think it's not even that far back when we heard that, oh, we are 30 FPS, it gives you the great cinematic experience. I think everybody was sick at some point hearing that kind of excuse for really low performing hardware. but it's not the case anymore. We really are far beyond that point. And these days, 30 FPS probably gives you like a baseline playable status with anybody who tries to play it. Really, below 30 is unplayable and would be considered broken. But it's not a standard. Like even 60 FPS these days is really like baseline acceptable for entry hardware. When we're looking at stuff as Valve new deck, a lot of handheld devices coming out, notebook devices coming out. On the lower end, 60 FPS is the kind of stuff that we have been seeing as, okay, that's actually playable, that's actually smooth. But in terms of monitors, when we look at desktop environments, 100 hertz and 100 FPS, therefore, is the minimum that even IDC defines as gaming these days. So unless you are looking into very casual titles, very indie maybe, or something that you wanna, for people who spend very little money, 60 FPS and with 60 hertz monitors is not gonna cut it. The affordability for high refresh monitors is like never before. 120 hertz monitors you can get today below $200. And that's something that everybody who is serious about playing, about games being their hobby, and invest in those. So if you want people to invest in your game, time and maybe even money, you really need to aim for the higher performance. And we know it. Optimization is often like the last thing that comes in game development. And these days, games often come, day 1 patches, day 2 patches, just to be running and get out the bugs. And many games even being released in early access in really pre-beta stages. And that kind of stuff really can influence how the game is perceived. Maybe you are trying to do a game that's fast-paced and it's driving, or it's a high-action game, and the game barely can hit a 60, then you really kind of alienate your audience, because the people who want to play it really want to play in higher FPS, especially when it comes to competitive titles. Once you go into anything that's esport even related, like anything that's competitive and should be played on the stage, 240 hertz is today's standards. Like every single esports organization we work with, that's the minimum requirement. And we're talking 360 hertz these days and higher refresh rates coming up. So a lot of times we think about the kind of optimization and how the game performs as the last thing. But if we're going forward with the trends that we see right now, people will be demanding high refresh rate dates out of the box, no matter which stage the game is. The moment I can buy it, I won't play the 120 FPS. And it's not really just about what the players want. It really gives an advantage. It can negate Pika's advantage in shooters. And I personally know a guy who plays a lot of fighting games, and like he moved to 240 Hz monitor. He can counter 50% more moves just because he's able to see the frames in between, though that he was not able to do on a 60 Hz monitor. So again, there are real world gaming implications to these technologies that people are seeking. Might be smooth gameplay, might be better performance, might be a little bit more advantage in certain competitive titles. It's something that people are actively seeking. And when the games can perform it, you might lose a lot of audience and people being or the experience of the players might be actually lessened by not being able to achieve the experience that the people have when they invested in their hardware. Good. That is it from my side. I think time-wise we are fine. Just one at the end, if you want to have more discussion about technology, how it influences gaming, or want to know about our exclusive offers towards UKI developer partners, there is an email address from my colleague, sbauk@dell.com, or the link that you will get when you get this presentation. And you can look up there, reach out to us and learn a little bit more how we help studios like CD Projekt Red, Ubisoft, Hi-Res, and others to overcome, hardware and development and scaling challenges within their organization. So if you're interested more in, how we do that and how we work with our partners in those kind of environments, please reach out to us. We are happy to talk to you and help you. Thanks.
Great, Dusan. Thank you very much for that. Well, that explains why my success rate in Rainbow Six Siege has dropped in the last 6 months. Clearly, my monitor is not enabling me to sneak peeking. It's not to do with my reflexes going as I get older. So thank you very much for that. What are Dell focusing on then? You've given us some really interesting insight here, looking at a whole raft of different implications, things that people probably don't think of in that development process about the standard of monitor and refresh and like the idea of an ultra wide. What are Dell focusing on?
So I can tell you one thing: we are heavily focusing on wider use cases. So when you look at monitors these days, we have seen in the past your TNs were good for gaming, your IPS were good for work. We've seen those boundaries completely being shattered. So now your best gaming monitors are fast IPS panels. We are seeing our new OLEDs coming into the market. So a lot of your gamers are now also content creators. They want to do YouTube. They want to stream on Twitch. So just an okay gaming monitor or gaming focus monitor is not good enough. So you will see more monitors coming out in terms of high color gamuts. Like majority of our monitors might be, at least 100% sRGB, and the top end will be 98% DCI-P3. For everybody who don't know what that is, it's pretty much a professional grade for photo and video editing. And that's at your home for, let's say, $500. So again, that professional grade panels is, I think, something that we will see more and more, because people don't have space now to have 5 monitors at home, So I think that unification into one grade monitor with, either being ultra wide or high resolution, that's good for work, good for games, amazing for media entertainment like Netflix and others. That's what's going on. And I think that will be one of the driven factor, like really monitor that can do everything. Instead of doing one specific task, it was in the past that gamers had TNs and offices had IPS. I think there will be just amazing screen technologies like OLED and others that will be put in front of everybody.
It's amazing. Thank you very much for that vision of the future, Dusan, and thanks for your time today. Up next, I'll share Dusan's slides afterwards, so you'll get to see the code, so you can take advantage of some lovely discounts on Dell products. It's very nice. Greg, you're up next. I love your work of art holding screen. That's nice. There we go. I can see your slides, but I can't see you, Greg. Where are you?
There we go.
Where are you? There you are, Greg. Wonderful. Right. I can see your slides. Over to you. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sam. It's a quick intro on Humane. We develop digital humans for world-leading AAA video game developers. We're a team of 30 programmers and artists developing technology to make it easier to create characters. I wanted to cover a couple of things today. I'd like to provide a case study of how R&D and creating technology has been vital to our company's success, but more importantly, how you can access the assistance required to fund your own R&D journey, because this stuff gets expensive real quick. So I spent 16 years in California leading R&D character teams on projects such as Star Wars, Harry Potter, and Avatar. And the teams were made up of highly trained specialists, and together we spent thousands of hours developing many of the characters that you know and love on the big screen. Now, to create a character for a movie that has enough fidelity and authenticity to capture and hold an audience is a tall mountain to climb. And as well as all the technical issues that need to be addressed, it takes a huge amount of computing power and huge amounts of labor. But for video game developers, it's even harder. Our task is to accomplish the same level of visual fidelity that takes a visual effects company 24 hours to do in a 60th of a second, or if you listen to Dusan, in 120th of a second. Now, on top of that, a movie might have 1 or 2 computer-generated characters, but in a video game, our entire cast is. And that cast can get into the hundreds, which is one of the reasons we turn to automation. How do we create a high volume of characters at a very high level of fidelity? Now, programmers have been writing solutions to streamline all our repetitive rigging processes for some time, but they always stop short when it comes to the face. And that's because we all have subtle differences in the shape of our eyes, our noses, our mouths, the colors of our skin, the way our faces make expressions. They all add up to a complex pattern that make us all unique. And the ability to recognize these subtle differences is so important to us as humans that our brains have evolved an area solely devoted to the task. And to help us understand how we use our faces to communicate, sometimes unknowingly, we turn to the facial action coding system, or FACS, as it's normally called. So FACS is the gold standard in describing all observable facial movement. And it breaks each muscle movement down into 40 action units. That when you combine them all together, you can create every single expression possible. So we teamed up with world-renowned facts expert, Dr. Erica Rosenberg. She's the protege of its creator, Paul Ekman, and she's also our chief scientific officer. Now, not only does Erica bring a wealth of experience and knowledge to Humane, but she has been teaching facts for 30 years. So she has gained this unique ability to be able to move individual muscles on her face, and she can pose very clean action units. So she was the perfect candidate for us to scan. So we scanned her posing every action unit plus 100 of their common combinations. And we scanned her at super high fidelity at the same scanner that we used for Star Wars. And we wrapped all our scan data with our own unique facial topology to give it a temporal consistency for blend shapes. We also captured Erica with a DI4D system running at 60 FPS, posing the same database of 140 scans. And this captured a lot of the really super nonlinear in-between data that you can't capture with single scans. The way features collide and gather like a concertina, or the nonlinear volume changes as tissue moves underneath the skin. So we've been able to use this data to reconstruct the in-betweens of the high resolution data. And our next step was to figure out how to transfer all this data from Erica to another character. Could we take a single model of a head created by an artist, or a single scan of a head, and build all of the action units required for facial rigging? So we tried many different techniques built into Maya and Blender and basically whatever else we could get our hands on, but the results were really poor quality. Eyes and mouths weren't closing properly, artifacts in corners, volume was being lost, and it kind of went off model very quickly. So we developed software to transfer action units from Erica to any other character. We researched many SIGGRAPH papers, we re-engineered them, and it took about 2 years in order to do this. And it's worked pretty well. It enables us to work with many world-leading technology and entertainment companies, multiple Xbox game studios, Google, Warner, HBO, Access Studios, so you saw some of the work up at the front, and Activision as well. I guess they're another Microsoft studio now, and we help them deliver Call of Duty. This is what one of our facial rigs looks like inside of Maya. We've also built the same logic inside the Unreal Engine as well. And the facial transfer software works really well for us, but we wanted to do even better. We wanted to develop a tool that had the same level of knowledge and understanding and experience of one of our top modelers. What we needed was something that could analyze a facial structure and output shapes based on its knowledge of anatomy. So we turned to machine learning. So machine learning allows computer systems to solve problems by learning from experience and examples, lots of examples. We researched over 50 highly cited papers, and by researched, I mean we took them apart. We reverse engineered on whiteboards, we spoke to the authors, we went down several rabbit holes until eventually we ended up with a few really great papers. And if you've ever looked at any academic papers and tried to implement them or even some of their code, it's not really an easy task. So we defined 4 key areas that impacted the quality of our deep learning algorithms. The first one was the neural network architecture. Then the shape representation and the deformations, and the training framework as well. And then of course the pipeline that allows us to iterate really quickly and to keep all our experiments organized. To test our neural networks, we used publicly available facial databases. Now, the databases that we used, were created by academics, and they have little to no understanding of production within a character pipeline. No good topology, and many were heavily biased morphologies depending on what part of the world they originated from. So the databases were good enough quality to build out our own algorithms, but we forged ahead knowing we would have to build our own. But one of the strands that we looked at in R&D was encoding and the decoding of data. So what was the best way to encode our data for machine learning? The machine learning papers that we were drawing from were primarily used 2D imagery as training material and not 3D objects. So we had to convert our 2D heads into 3D heads into 2D images by converting each of the vertex coordinates as XYZ into RGB. And then we began experimenting with convolutional neural networks. And we battled this for some time before realizing that we weren't getting the best results from 2D, and it was not good enough quality for us. So we experimented with multiple 3D encoding methods. The trouble with most 3D formats for machine learning is that they are only Cartesian coordinates kind of loosely connected by edges. So we looked at other ways to represent shapes. We used autoencoders, variational autoencoders, ACAP, and even Fourier frequencies, until we found the solution that works for us. And then we could start experimenting with graph convolutional networks. Our times increased dramatically, but we got it under control soon. And soon we were achieving better results than what we were getting from our research papers. But apparently that's the way all research papers end anyway. What you're looking at here is a traditional linear blend shape pose, going from one pose to another, and you can see us taking the shortest distance between those 2 points. And then the right-hand side is like an ACAP pose. So there's just 2 poses here, but they all understand, all the vertexes understand each other, the edges understand each other, the features understand each other, and you get a much more plausible in-betweens. And now we needed a high quality database ourselves, one fit for current AAA production and beyond. So we acquired thousands of scans of multiple individuals, and their identities covered a wide variety of the population, and their faces aligned with base action units. So we spent months wrapping them with our common topology to a film quality standard. And we used this as training material for our deep learning architecture. And here are some of the results. Personalized blend shapes. So on the left-hand side is the ground truth data. This is a neutral head and expression scans that are not part of our training material. And it is morphing just through the few shapes that are here. And on the right-hand side is the output of our deep learning architecture. The same neutral head is put in, and it has predicted that given this head's anatomy, these are the expressions it would make. So we just generated those 10 for you this morning. So we're also able to build 3D linear and bilinear morphable models. And that enables us to create more heads and expressions. So we can create thousands of different heads of people and attach all of the expressions. At this stage, some of our customers were asking us about BOM-based facial rigs as well, which we also do. So we developed our own SSDR decomposition solutions that enable us to take our very high fidelity facial rigs and create very high fidelity joint-based rigs as well. We also developed our own OBF solver that has parity between Maya and Unreal. We pushed our SSDR further and developed hierarchical SSDR, which, among other things, enabled us to decompose corrective shapes down to their helper joints. So technology research has been vital for our company's growth, and for a small company such as ours, taking on all of this R&D is very resource intensive, and therefore it's very expensive. So I thought it might be useful or helpful to you to go through some of our funding, R&D funding route. Our DI-40 facial capture was completed at Ulster University. Now, if I wasn't a researcher there already, I would have gotten access through an innovation voucher. Now, innovation vouchers are an easy way to get access to a university researcher. It's a small amount of money at £5,000. Although there is much to be gained by the research activity itself, it's the first step in building a relationship, not just with the researcher and the university, but with the wider research community and their funders. When we were trying to transfer our database of action units from one character to another, we quickly exhausted all of the off-the-shelf solutions. So we needed to be able to bring in more expertise, and we sought help through a KTP. So a KTP is a knowledge transfer program that enables a company to engage with the university to transfer knowledge from the university to the company via a research associate. So we engaged with Bournemouth University, and we managed to recruit an associate who had completed her PhD in physical-based skin deformations. And the KTP funding also enabled us to engage directly with the Bournemouth Doctoral College, like on a weekly basis. And through this relationship, we not only gained an experienced researcher, but we gained access to insights and were signposted to research that we wouldn't have otherwise known about. And it also provided us opportunities to network within the university, and we were able to recruit other postdocs and PhD students as well. The next step after that would be with smart funding. And you can seek smart funding yourself, or as a company, or you can go in with another partner, such as a university or another company. And this gives you access to much larger sums. So each one of these steps builds on top of the other. So the sooner you start your research journey, the easier and faster it'll be to get to those larger sums of funding. So for a small company, such as ours, we're very focused on getting our customers what they need. And we do that through the years of research and development enabled by our trusted relationships with universities and research funders, and some of which you can see here, the AWS team here, NVIDIA Inception Program, Machine Intelligence Garage, and the universities. So just like we finished by saying that machine learning algorithms are quickly becoming ubiquitous in every field and in every industry, including video games. And we believe that despite its enormous success over the recent years, it's still very much in its infancy. And it's going to play a significant role in video game development over the next coming years. So I hope this has given you a glimpse into how we apply technology research into Humane, and hopefully encourage you to be able to begin your own journey. So thanks a million, Sam, and thanks for listening.
Thanks, Greg. That's quite layers and layers of additional work. That's an immense undertaking for the research that you've done. Fantastic work there. You mentioned a couple of those R&D pots that people can apply to. Mm-hmm. What's the process for going through those? Are they laborious, complicated, 50 pages? What are we talking about here in the application process?
The first one you want to do is, if it's an innovation voucher, it's really super simple. Just contact your local university, get through to a professor, most of them, or a lecturer, most of them will get back to you. You got to remember, the universities are, what are universities driven by? A lot of them are not just the research, but they're driven by impact and what they're doing, because they get a lot of their money from how much impact that they can make on the UK. So working with another company, ticks a lot of those impact boxes. So they're keen to work with you. So if there's a university in your area doing research into computer graphics or games or something like that, just lift up the phone, contact them, send an email. All of their names are on each one of those lists, and it doesn't have to be somewhere in your area. It just has to be within the UK. The other one, the larger ones, the smart funding one, that can be quite complex, and that can be 20 odd pages or whatever. But at that stage, you will have just been able to describe your journey, and they should be pretty easy to fill out once you get to that stage.
That's amazing advice for people wanting to start their R&D journey. So thank you very much for that guidance, and I will share your details afterwards. I'm sure people want to pick your brains and find out that little bit more about it. So thanks very much for your time, Greg.
Great. Thanks a million, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Finally, I'm going to invite Bruce and Georgina to come and join me as we have a conversation, a catch up, a panel. Let me change. There we go. Speaker view. So, hello, Georgina. You all right?
Hi. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. How are you?
Very well. Thank you very much. Let me just change mine.
Because I fancy seeing you here, Bruce.
Hey, Dina. How are you?
I was saying we should start our own podcast.
Exactly. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we do this conversation and then we'll decide whether it would be an awesome podcast or not.
Or on trial, yeah.
Burn. Lovely backdrop, by the way, Bruce. Always good to see some books there, show a certain amount of intelligence. I love that.
It's actually just a wallpaper.
Is it? Well, it's a a very impressive 3D looking wallpaper. Georgina, I'm going to come to you first, if that's all right. Can you tell us a little bit about, well, who are you? Tell me a little bit about your company, if that's okay.
Well, that's a deep question. No, I'm joking. Yeah, hi, I'm Gina. I'm the CEO of Tailwind, and we're a studio that is on a mission to become the #1 content creator for metaverse platforms, and we're starting with Roblox. So we're a remote company. We started last January, and just celebrated our first birthday, which has been a bit of a wild ride. We're a remote company based spread across the depths and breadths of the UK, and we're a current team size of 17. And we're pioneering the 4-day working week. I wanted to add that in there because it's become everyone's trialing it now. So, well, not everyone, but like it's really great. But yeah, that's me, and that's Tailwind.
You see, there's loads of things I want to pick up there. The how do you celebrate a 1-year anniversary? 17 people. And you did a video call to celebrate, did you, or what was
we sent everyone a gift box, and we did a virtual party, and it was fun. But we do quarterly meetups. So
okay.
When we do like our company campfires, we the money that we're saving from not having an office, we invest in a big kind of company all hands every quarter.
It's amazing. You can tell when Yuki gets a delivery of fruit and veg, which we get every quarter, everyone is just going on about, I don't know, smoothies and soup and for the next week. So
I love
that's
that.
that's our little treat to the staff. Bruce, how about you? And there's been some change with you recently that I'd love to hear about.
There has been some change. So I am now, as of 30 days ago, I am the VP for UK for Mythical Games. And Mythical Games is building an entirely new platform so that we can create experiences using playable NFTs and really think about how we start to connect these experiences and connect all of these what is really this shift in the internet that we keep talking about. Everyone keeps saying metaverse or Web3, and what is it? And there's lots of opinions and lots of people working in different ways, and I think a lot of it is learning. But at the end of last year, as Polystream, through a conversation, a number of events, Mythical Games acquired Polystream, so the team is now leading up in the UK to really build this idea of what it means to create content that we can access really quickly and access very easily, which I think is very much, we'll talk about, very much a linchpin of what Web3 is.
Fascinating, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I do want it to sound like, Polystream got rid of you. I'm glad you said that Polystream was acquired.
Yes.
That was, exit stage left. Now, delighted to have both of you here. And you say this is talking about, I don't think you're talking about an education, but I'm certainly here to learn about what the metaverse is, and it's something we hear a lot about. And I'm gonna ask you for what it means to you. Georgina, would you like to go first? So what does the metaverse mean to you?
Yeah, that's great. I'm trying to move away from like using the metaverse because it doesn't really exist, and I think it's just obviously like I think a lot of people's perception is like this Ready Player One type kind of platform where everything is interconnected, and that doesn't really exist yet. But what is exciting is there's several metaverse platforms, and at the moment catering for, you can kind of have your own, there's all different, I call flavors of metaverse that kind of cater for all different kinds of communities. And at the heart, it's my definition of metaverse is community and social driven experiences that can be enjoyed by kind of everyone regardless of like your device. And it's just this really great kind of experience that just brings people together through what, from my experience, gameplay. But it can be, we've seen events, we've seen concerts hosted virtually, and especially given the times that we've just kind of navigated and still navigating, it's become a really important tool to bring people together in a digital way. And
in terms of metaverse then, so do you think it's always existed, it's just got this nice name now? Do you feel like it's been here for a while?
I think it's been here for a while. Roblox has been around, but I say my main experience is from Roblox, right? And that's been around for decades, and it's just starting to become kind of like a household name now. But I think if you ask like most parents, like they've been talking about Roblox for quite a few years, and maybe now the term metaverse is coming in. People are starting to realize that actually that a lot of people are engaging socially online, and it's maybe time to kind of start recognizing that.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to you and ask about the flavor of Roblox in a minute, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Just maybe think of some fancy flavor when we come back. That would be good. I like to put things in boxes. It makes my life so much easier. Now, Bruce, talking about boxes, what does metaverse mean to you?
I think for me, I've been on the journey of the internet for a long time. I've been in and around, going all the way back to the first browser and boards before that, and just how we connected with things. Right, I remember the magic of bulletin boards and being able to talk to people on the other side of the planet.
The magic of bulletin boards.
I know,
did you really say
just,
that?
I mean,
I can't believe it.
Yeah, getting a time slot from your IT person at your office and them telling you when you could connect to this World Wide Web, right? But that was what Web 1 was, right? So Web 1 was about network protocols. It was starting to think about standards for files and sharing and how we move data around. And it was a very important point because, and we look back then and there were all these people saying what it wasn't going to be, right? You would never give your credit card details to the web. It will never be used for music or video or any of the other things. And all of these brilliant predictions that turned out to be brilliantly wrong. And then we moved into Web 2. And Web 2 is when we started to look at what we can do as we advance all of this, all these things that keep evolving, like our compute, our power, our performance, our networks, everything. And we started to see the sort of introduction, as Gina said, of things like, well, social became more important, right? Social started to become a real-time thing, not a sending a message to someone. We started to see transactions. We saw all of these different storefronts being built. And we started to see all of these experiences that were really starting to connect people across all of these different ways. And we also started, I mean, we absolutely saw the rise of the browser and search and the power we could use. And while that was going on, I think the games industry in particular was just catching up with Web 1, right? It just suddenly realized that it can connect people using these network protocols. And we started to see through that period games where you could go in and you would start to have those experiences. And they immediately became social. And they immediately connected us, and they immediately gave us places to go and have experiences. And that was quite a magical thing. But meanwhile, the internet carried on and just kept building the way it's been building. And suddenly we're at Web 3. And I think this transition we're in is very much, suddenly the games industry, the technology that underpins it is front and center. It's about visual, it's about social, it's about how do we connect and how do we come together. It is music, it is game engines building visual experiences. It is being able to go from place to place. And I think the thing that will absolutely break the back of this now is, so how do we make that easy? How do we make that as accessible as Web 1 and Web 2 were? And how do we make it that I can go from all these different places just as easily as I do today? But it's going to be built on game tech. It is going beyond gameplay and players, so that a concert is a visual experience, so that sports games become a visual experience, whatever we want to do. And we can do it as social experiences. That, I think, for me, is what metaverse means. And it doesn't matter whether it's a 3D Wikipedia or Netflix or playing games or watching games. It's how do we easily move and navigate all of that?
Do you think this has been further? That's excellent, thank you. It's prompted loads of questions. I'm going to try and make them a little bit more bite-sized and concise if possible. Do you think, and sorry to mention the terrible word lockdown, but do you think that has sped this process up a little bit, because we're missing out on these experiences and we're trying to find different ways of exploring, as you said, all of these different visual and stimulating experiences? Has that had an impact?
It's absolutely had an impact, and I think it's told a lot of us it's really hard.
Right.
So
yeah.
I think we know. I think we're very good at building games, and we're very good at then translating those into experiences in other places. I think the lockdown, I mean, we're here on Zoom right now, and we know that if we go into any of these virtual worlds right now, some of them are good. I wouldn't say any of them are great yet. Not games specifically, but some of these sort of more virtual event type spaces. They're all trying to figure it out. And a lot of that is because I think, coming back to the same thing, suddenly games is thrust front and center for an audience that aren't necessarily gamers, right? I saw something the other day where somebody just presented straight away, hey, look, here's my virtual world. Use WASD to move around. It's like, my sister has no idea what WASD means, right? So how do we, this comes back to the accessibility problem. How do we make it feel natural? Spatial audio is critical, right? Visual experiences don't need to be ultra high definition, but they need to give us expression. They need to give us that feeling of how we move around it. And I think those are the things, but it's absolutely accelerated it, right? Because everyone's realized it's not going anywhere. So now there is this sort of giant drive and funding, and everything is like, we know this is happening. We've seen very large companies make it front and center, including changing their branding, right? Changing who they are.
Yeah.
So we know this is happening. Now we've got to learn, I think, and it's going to be a lot of learning. How do we all get in there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Georgina, you've been in there. You're exploring. You're innovating. You're working on these platforms. Thank you, Bruce, for that last answer. By the way, fed me beautifully into Georgina. So tell us a little bit about what Tailwind are doing. Specifically, Tailwind. I've just renamed it as Bruce said. Rename your company. No, Tailwind is much better than Hailwind. Tell me a bit about what Tailwind Games are doing then.
Yeah, so we kind of birthed on the opportunity where we'd kind of had my co-founder had been exploring Roblox as a contractor, and realized that, like, I mean, the figures kind of speak for themselves. Like, the last time I checked, it was like 64 million daily active users, and that's insane, right? Like, and the platform that they've created is arguably like the best multiplayer online platform that's out there at the moment, and they just make developing so easy to do. It's pretty frictionless to make your game and then put it out to all of the audiences. So we kind of what we'd established was our opportunity was that a lot of the games on there are wonderfully created by the community. They've really created this great kind of, like, I mean, there obviously are issues that we're working to help solve with them as well, but they've created this wonderful kind of ecosystem where they really kind of, they're encouraging players to realize that actually this is something that I can make, and that's something that I didn't have access to, but I came into games quite late, and I think that's really wonderful to be able to draw that loop and that career path. But what we've noticed is that the Roblox demographic is predominantly 7 to 12, and then when they get to 12, they get to school. Roblox isn't cool. It's very blocky. The experiences are quite. I mean, when you're comparing them to Fortnite and the other some of the other cool stuff that they're going on to, like Minecraft and stuff, the gameplay and the deeper engaging storylines and narrative and stuff just aren't there. But the Roblox platform can manage it. It's just because they've predominantly been created by the community and they're all self-educated, which is wonderful, but they haven't really kind of can't really push themselves beyond that. So we've come on to the platform with the opportunity to kind of assemble some really great content creators from different different genres of gaming and bring those experiences to there, and the platform can hold it. It's doing, and our game Breezy Bay, which comes out this year, is going to be hopefully one of the first kind of more professionalized experiences on there. So that's our opportunity. We're also working alongside the developer community to kind of share our learnings, because when everyone's games are doing really well on Roblox, then it just kind of it improves the platform.
That makes sense, doesn't it? The more people that are getting great experiences, the more people will play it. And you've got this brilliant model, or Roblox have got a brilliant model, more to the point, when at some point every person will be between the ages of 6 and 9. They've got a self-fulfilling audience every year. Yeah. So beautiful tactics.
And what we've learned from our players as well, as we're speaking to parents as well, is that during lockdown, and they've been using this as a way to engage with their friends. It's the digital playground, and as they're coming out of lockdown, they're still using it to socialize with friends who have gone to different schools, and it's just this really wonderful kind of experience that. And I mean, I'm definitely not demographic. I don't quite understand the games on there, but it's a really great platform. It's really quirky. The games on there you wouldn't expect to do really well. Like this horror game called Piggy, where you're getting chased by a horror pig, is one of the #1 horror. And the horror is a really great genre on Roblox, which you'd be like 6 to 12, really horror, but it's wonderful. We're learning something new every single day.
I think pigs are cute and cuddly. I'm slightly disturbed by the idea of a horror game with a pig.
It's got a big knife and it's chasing you.
Oh, so it's not a nice pig. I get that. Okay, wonderful. and maybe this will create some games developers and games creators of the future if they're getting a taste for it on Roblox.
We're hiring them, but it's creating tangible career paths from these platforms into now tangible careers. We're hiring. We've got an 18-year-old developer who had just come out of college. He's been on Roblox for 7 years, and he's running rings around some of our developers who have been developing on other platforms like Unity for 15. And we're building a team, a real hybrid team now of developers that are self-taught because they have lived and breathed the quirks of these platforms, mixed with some more traditional backgrounds, and it's really great. I'm definitely challenging my biases.
Bruce, I'm going to take a little step back if that's all right, and go back. We really went far off.
Gina just said something that just
it just went.
Gets me.
It was the horror pig with the knife, wasn't it?
No. It was actually about where people are coming from and where they're going, and I think that's absolutely a topic all of itself.
Well, where are they going then, Bruce?
Well, I think something Gina just said, which I think is incredible, right? We're creating all these platforms that people can develop on. We also have things like Unreal, we have Unity, we have Roblox, we have Minecraft. But one of the things that's coming out of that is all of these people are learning how to build. And this goes back to my point about this future, this internet we're building on game tech, but not necessarily for gamers, right? So why are the car companies using Unreal or Unity, right? Why are architects using game engines to build and design their next buildings? And now they're putting us in them. Now we can go in and we can walk around these spaces. So what we're seeing is people from maybe even a decade ago would have done all of this education in games technology only to go into games. Now they go in to create these virtual worlds. They go in to create experiences. They go in to create music. They go in to create sports, whatever it is. It's like all of that. And that's going to create a massive shift because it sort of plays as a virtuous circle of how do we solve the usability problems? We'll get people who aren't so hell-bent on game design thinking about, well, actually, this is what I want to do to get in these spaces. And this is how I want to bring my friends in these spaces. And these are how I want to bring my family in these spaces. And that's game tech. It's all driving it. And we get to see all of that rapidly happening. And it's already happening, right? We're seeing, you go to the internet now and go to a car configurator, it's built using a game engine, right? Well, what happens when we go in the car configurator now? We're all in this virtual world. You say what's accelerated, it's absolutely accelerated, right? What are those experiences? Because we can't get in a showroom now. And it's all of that from retail to entertainment. Those people now have multiple paths to go and be creators. And that's awesome. That's so exciting.
I'm going to come back to that in a second, sort of the difference between sort of, I suppose, large tech companies compared to sort of agile, smaller ones. We'll come back to that in a second because that's interesting. But I'd like you to give a little plug for your company here. So what are Mythical Polystream doing in Metaverse then? What's your thing?
Mythical's thing is sort of underpinning this platform is this idea that these experiences can come together. So by creating a platform that creators can put playable assets onto, but those assets can be transactable. So now as you create, you go on, You play, you may purchase, you may acquire all these different things, but they're not stuck within that domain. The sort of longer term goal is, how do we move things between different spaces? How do we move them around? Not necessarily as a perfect representation in every space, because that's not always the case, but what does it mean to have that identity that moves around, or those features that move around that you can take from place to place? So what does it mean to have a playable character in one game that I can then take to my car showroom, for example, right? And it's this idea of sort of part of Web3 is identity, who I am. I think one of the things I've seen, it's interesting, as Georgina said about Roblox, is that audience. And yet we're seeing a lot of much higher end experiences being built in there, right? So you go into the Gucci experience. Well, Gucci is not really a 9 to 12-year-old demographic, right? But you go in, you get a Gucci hat, you get your special thing. But then when you leave the Gucci experience, your hat gets left behind. And I can't take it into the next space, even though it's all on the Roblox platform. So how do I start to connect all of these things and create that idea that things move with me when I want them to as well? And that's mythical. That's a lot of what we're building here, this idea that things should be transferable, and they should be transferable in and out. And creators start to think about, how do we connect the physical and the digital? And if I create music, can it have a further value elsewhere? All those sorts of pieces. So it all sounds very intangible, but that is also because it's very early. A lot of this is we're learning. We're working out what is working and what isn't. And we're doing that by building. We have Blanco's Block Party, which is similar to Roblox, in that you have a platform, you can create games, you go in and out, but you create those characters, and those characters I could decide to sell it to someone else if I want. They have value, and I can put them on a market, and I can decide what I want to do them, or I could collect them just like I do my little plushies up there and so on, right? So I get all of that same kind of feeling. And I think there's a lot of resistance to that, but also there's another audience that's saying, well, I love this. I absolutely want that. I've worked for this. Why can't I keep it or sell it to someone else?
Yeah, it's interesting, the whole commercialization of those kinds of assets, and as you move around a bit, that would be a fascinating thing going forward. I'm going to ask two more questions, if that's all right, just before we bring this to a close. So I will start with you, Bruce, because you're on screen. I'm going to go to you. Now, Metaverse seems to be very buzzy with a lot of the big tech platforms and the big companies. They're investing in it very heavily. Do you think they're actually, without necessarily being rude about them, but are they defining what the Metaverse is going to be? Or are we seeing lots of small companies, agile companies create things? Or are they just intrinsically going to be working with the bigger platforms? How do you think that's going to shake out? Or is it too early to say?
I think I think it's too early to say, but I have, not surprisingly, an opinion on it. And I think that comes from the fact that we see through technology, and we see these kinds of things accelerating, that do those companies have a place? Can they continue to do this and move quickly enough to create those experiences? I don't think 10 years ago anyone could have anticipated Roblox being the size it is. So it doesn't do us very well to say the next company can't come along and grow and take a place in this. I think it goes back to, in some ways, that Web 1 was a very decentralized idea. Web 2 started to centralize it, and we saw these platforms taking their own places. And as part of that, they built huge infrastructure to support it. And that infrastructure is absolutely very critical to everything we do. I'm sure a huge amount of Roblox runs on one of those other platforms, for example. And I don't think that's going to change. What I don't quite know, what I can't figure out is, do those platforms now become utilities in the way that we already have other forms of utilities? And it will be the more agile creators that take us more in the direction back to a decentralized way of connecting all the pieces together. And that's kind of what I look for. That's a kind of, in an ideal world, I see that as a path forward, because I don't think we want one of those giant platforms owning this. I think we want to be able to create a more decentralized experience across those things for each each part of the world, each part of the demographics. Everyone wants that sort of their things. So I think the infrastructure utility piece is key, but I don't think them owning what my avatar is going to look like is what I want. So
Absolutely.
I think we see this sort of Web 1, Web 2, Web 3 maybe starts to abstract it again.
That's fascinating. And Georgina, I'm assuming that, correct me if I'm wrong, because I frequently am, you're a small business working with one of these major companies and you're making it work, and actually they're benefiting from you making stuff on their platform as well. So that's quite a symbiotic relationship. Is that something you think we'll see continue in the future, or are the big players going to try and just take control?
I think echoing Bruce's point really is I think what we're seeing is the larger companies assembling platforms. I don't really foresee a platform holder being able to successfully make their own content if we're going to continue in the nature of the metaverse as it is, which is community driven. It kind of feels like if you're then competing with the platform holder, I'm not sure how the community would engage with that. But what we are, and again echoing Bruce's point about the space is growing, and in order to move fast, you have to be agile, and the larger companies aren't doing that, right? So there is a huge space for the entrepreneurs among us to spot problems, develop something really cool, and then we're seeing then people like, for example, Meta buying these companies to assemble their platforms. And I think that's what we're going to continue seeing. I think that's what maybe the next platform is going to be. It's going to be a culmination of other tech tools that are going to rival Roblox, because it's super exciting, and we're making it work. We've spotted the opportunity that Roblox don't want to compete with their content creators, because they're focusing on the tool. That's what they do best, and they know that that the community are making the content best. So what they need to focus on is making sure that they can facilitate that. So I mean, I hope for my business sake, that's how I continue.
Well, that's the way it's going at the moment. Or why would it change? That everyone's benefiting from it. So
there's loads of platforms out there, and there's loads of funds that they're looking for content creators. So that is super exciting, and we're always looking for the next big platform.
Well, the next big platform, I'm going to end with a very open question then. So I don't know which direction you're going to head in on this, but if we're looking at the future of the games industry, and you can obviously say there's no such thing in the future, we're all going to be metaverse and that's it if you choose to. But for the games industry, what's the future for games working in metaverse, in your opinion?
I mean, it's something that I'm very passionate about, and something that really excited me about this space is reducing the barrier to entry, right? It's that a lot of these platforms are low code or no code, and really kind of this, and it just, I think something that we've all struggled with is seeing how difficult it is for people coming out of university wanting to get into the games industry, and it's something that obviously we're all collaboratively trying to work towards. But I think that this space is blowing it out of the water by saying, look, here are the tools, they're free, there's a whole community here that you can learn from and make stuff with, and it's a really great community to be a part of. So that's what I'm excited about the future of, and I definitely don't think that the metaverse is going to absorb the whole of the game industry. I think there's space for both.
And Bruce, how about you?
I don't think I've ever seen a shift in the games industry that's really truly been at the expense of another industry, in the sense that it's just continues to grow. We may have sort of gone through shifts and transitions, arcades being an example, and certain types of experiences, and I think the clue's in your name as well, right? Interactive entertainment as part of Yuki. It's not just about games. Games keep being more, and we keep finding new ways to bring experiences to more audiences. So mobile devices changed everything, right? We all know that, we talk about it a lot, but that was a huge shift. It didn't exist even 2-3 years before that happened, and all of a sudden it became half the market. And I think we'll continue to see that. Dusan noted we'll continue to see evolution of game models and how people access content. But I also think we'll continue to see that evolution of content that will then just reach more people. And that's the thing. It's not the games industry absorbs or is absorbed by the metaverse. It is that the games industry helps create the metaverse. And it's just another thing that we become sort of engaged with. And I think it's that. It's absolutely, we are absolutely a dominant industry. We know that. We know we have a huge place alongside music and film and all the others. And we just keep growing these experiences.
That's a wonderfully positive note for us to end on today. So thank you, Bruce and Georgina. In fact, a very quick thank you to all of our speakers today, to David, Joe, to Kevin, Dusan, Greg, and also Bruce and Georgina. Really appreciate your time. The talks have been recorded and we will make them available afterwards to people to watch in their own at their own leisure. So thank you very much for that. And a big thank you to AWS, Amazon and Barclays who enable us to put these events on. So shout out to them. This is normally where the round of applause would come in. We're not going to have the round of applause today because it just doesn't work virtually, but it's there. And thanks to our audience for joining us today. Take care and hopefully see you next week for the next Hub Crawl event. Thanks very much.
Georgina, Sam, thank you so much. Awesome.
Cheers. Bye.